Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Inside Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Cole Daly. This is Joey and Jordan. And this is going to be episode 20. Yes, the DE is capitalized. We're going to go ahead and catch you guys up with the women's basketball program. Last time we had talked to you folks, they were in the midst of the Missouri Valley tournament, but that has obviously come to an end. We got a win in the first round versus Indiana State, but we had a close loss to Belmont, which is nice to see, obviously. That first time we played Belmont, if you told me we would have played them close, I'd be honestly thrilled. We finished the season 12-19, 9-13 in the Missouri Valley. We were 17th in the tournament. I think it's looking up. Kelly Bond White. Give me your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't too much. There isn't too much left to say. I guess I'm mad. Let me start over. There isn't too much left to say that we haven't already said. I mean, the vast improvement that they've shown from week one to where we are now. It's crazy. The record may not reflect that in the very end of the season, but I honestly feel better about where this team is heading into next year than I do the men's program, despite the fact that the men's program had a better record, higher seeding, advanced further in the tournament. A great end to the season, got a win in the conference tournament, win that we should have gotten, and then playing Belmont close again. We talked about that 56-point loss earlier in the year and how far we've come. It's been great to watch. So I'm excited about 23-24 season.
Yeah, I think those two games against Belmont, I guess 3 technically, but specifically talking about the 50-point loss compared to the tournament loss where we only lost by 6, I think that just shows you where we went through this whole season, to where the defense was at earlier and where they ended up later on in the season. Obviously, we didn't finish off with a win, but I feel like that shows a lot about Coach Kelly's style and everything, and where she can take this team at least head into next year. I just love the idea. I know we ended the year on a loss, of course, but it didn't really feel like a loss.
Yeah. There's aside from an actual win or loss that goes in the column, it feels different with this team. It shows. I liked what you said, where it showed promise with Bond White's ability to really pick this team up out of the gutter. Promise Taylor. There you go.
Someone called it.
I hadn't thought of that. That was good. Now on to softball. The rock stars of SIU sports as of right now, sitting at 23-5, 6-2 in the Missouri Valley. And Joey wrote down here, best start for us in 30 years. I can't believe that. That's actually really, really incredible. They've been 9-3 the past couple of weeks. It was kind of a rough weekend, honestly. They lost 2 to Belmont, but with how well they've been playing up to this point, you really can't complain. Give me your guys' thoughts on how the team's been playing and what we can see going forward.
Yeah, I mean, with just where they were at playing up until this most recent weekend, I feel like it was just kind of due for them for just a couple losses in a way, keep them humble per se. But we literally have some of the best bats in the conference in the heart of our lineup. I have some of the names. Obviously, we're going to interview Jackie Lis here in a little bit.
Of course.
Emma Austin, Aubrey DePron, Riley Hamilton, and Elizabeth Warwick. Those are all basically 1 through 5 in our lineup. And a lot of them are even in the top of all of D1 softball in terms of a lot of statistics. So, I mean, just the possibilities with this team this year are limitless, I feel like. And that's interesting compared to where we were at in the preseason, because we were only listed at number 3 in the preseason standings. And now it kind of seems like they could almost run away with it. But I know it was an interesting start to the conference season.
Yes.
As far as I know, we just have to kind of just take the start to the season. I don't want to say. Let me restart that.
He's going to restart this. 3, 2, 1, go.
As far as I know, we need to take the start of this season and just almost forget about it, because conference season is just a whole new level of play style and everything like that. And I feel like we'll talk about that with Jackie here in a little bit. But as far as I'm concerned, they're only 4th in the conference, even though they did have that huge start to the season. So just keep that rolling, get back to the basics and everything. Forget about this past weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. It's funny. Last year with the baseball team, they were the ones who were hitting it all over the place, JT Weber and all of them. But now, softball this year. Jordan, what have you taken away from this team?
Well, I think what's crazy about a team so young, especially, is how much balance that they've had. Pitching and hitting have been phenomenal to start the year. Pitching depth, of course, is going to be the question. They only throw about 2 or 3 girls consistently. How consistent can they be in conference play against the bigger and better teams like Belmont, as opposed to, I guess, the soft-ish schedule that they've played up to this point, playing a lot of home games too.
Yeah.
And 2 straight weekends of home tournaments where you get a bunch of teams coming in, staying in hotels. They're not in their most comfortable environment. Now we go on the road at Belmont, and Belmont takes advantage of the fact that we haven't had a ton of experience playing on the road, especially in conference. And the other crazy thing about this team being so young is when you talk about young teams typically, especially in college, like, well, they're going to be at their best at the end of the year. Well, at the beginning of the year, we're 23-5. We're in late March now. We're getting into the spot where this team's going to start coming into their more consistent form that we're going to start seeing on a day-to-day basis. And so the sky's the limit, obviously, for this team. It's good, like you guys were talking about, that they have a little bit of adversity now, so that they have something to come back for, something to keep motivating them to go out and continue winning ball. so that they have something to motivate them, so they can come out and continue winning ball games.
Yeah. And then finally, we wrap this up with baseball. Feeling a lot better after this past weekend with a sweep over UIC. We should have gotten that sweep over UIC. If we lost one, I'd actually feel like that's more of a loss. But, we're sitting at 12-12 right now. We're 500, 3-0 in the conference. We play UT Martin on Tuesday, and then 3-game series at Bradley for more conference play. It felt good to get that sweep, but you guys tell me your thoughts on what you think.
I'm not even going to lie here. I haven't been able to catch a baseball game. I'd really love to, but it seems to me that Ben Chapman is the ace of this team, right? He went, 6 2/3 on Sunday, this past Sunday, almost went 7 innings. Tanner Lewis and Jake Combs, they all went 5. That's better than what it had been in the past couple series, it seemed like. But the bats were hot yesterday. It seems like Kaber is coming into his own, of course. And then Matt Shark, I know Ryan Rodriguez talked about how he was the one who he wouldn't want to face in like a home run derby. He'd probably be the one to win it. And now he's finally getting into his own. I think he had 2 homers on Saturday, or maybe it was Friday. Sunday. It was Sunday.
It was
okay,
Sunday,
yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, he's finally getting into his own with that home run ball. And yeah, one thing I did notice, at least just on the stat line, it seems like at least this past weekend, a lot of their runs are coming later in the game. I'd like to see a little bit more better at-bats earlier in the game, per se.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that one. We tend to get in these deficits, and it comes pretty hard to fall out of. I mean, obviously that Kentucky, it was a couple weekends ago, but when we lost 21-3, that was kind of our big problem. So, Jordan, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, and for a team that I said before the year, pitching was going to be their biggest question mark, and as they showed this past weekend, the offense, they're still going to hit bombs. They hit 6 homers on Sunday, the most that they'd hit in a couple of years. 5 home runs in 1 inning, too, which is unheard of. The first time any Saluki baseball team had ever done that. Mm-hmm. So that's crazy in and of itself. But like I was saying about the pitching, starting in particular, Chapman's been the only guy to get consistent, Friday starts. He's that main number 1 ace, I guess you could say. But the other 2 guys have been kind of interchangeable. It's been Easton Dermody at times, Paul Banzani, Jake Combs, and Tanner Lewis has gotten the last couple starts on Sunday now. And finding guys' roles, especially with guys who can either start or be long relief, like a guy like Paul Banzani and Tanner Lewis, have done in the past, I think that's going to be where this team finally finds itself on the pitching side of things. And I think this weekend was a fantastic showing from them in particular. The most runs they allowed was, I think, 5, which was on Sunday. And that was after we were already up by 9 runs after that big inning anyway. So love what I've seen from the team this past weekend, going against UT Martin on Tuesday and then into the weekend at Bradley, at Dozer Park. Shout out the Peoria Chiefs, who Cole and I have seen a lot of growing up. So yeah. Great
309 boys.
Yeah, 309 boys. Great things from the Salukis this past weekend.
Yeah, really excited for a very, very fun week of baseball and softball coming up. Right now, we're going to go ahead and talk to Jackie Lis of the SAU softball team, the star freshman, some might say. Hello, everyone. On this week's episode of Saluki Space, we're here with infielder Jackie Lis for the SIU softball team. And we're going to go ahead and check in with her and give her some thoughts on, how the softball team's doing and where we think they're headed. But first, the most important question. Do you have a favorite singer or artist that you've been listening to a lot recently?
Not really. I'm not a big music person, is what you said.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Like pre-game music or anything?
No, I'm the only one that doesn't listen to music on the bus. Everyone else brings their AirPods. I don't.
You just sit with and talk to friends?
I'm just on social media, just
Oh.
looking around.
Gotcha.
Do you read? What do you do for fun sometimes?
A lot of TikTok, Twitter, stuff like that.
Do you actually make the TikToks?
Oh, heck no.
No.
I leave that to the other girls.
Yeah.
They like to do that.
Kind of on that same note, is there a funniest person on the team like that you guys have? Who would you say is funniest?
We're all just kind of morons. Like
Nice.
we're all funny like in our own ways. Like
Yeah.
Riley Hamilton, she just says out of pocket stuff and just does the weirdest crap you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then Anna Carter she also is a moron and just embarrasses herself on the daily, which is entertaining. But I mean, everybody in their own sense is pretty funny.
Gotcha.
The word moron just seems to be thrown out there.
Yeah, it is. It is. If you watch us in the dugout, you'll see why it's bad, but it's also funny.
I'm sure. And finally, who did you have winning it in your bracket this year? And are they still in it?
If I'm gonna be dead honest, I didn't really make one,
Mm-hmm.
but I probably would have went with a 1 seed that wasn't Purdue. I'm not a Purdue person.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
didn't really pay attention to any of the
Do you know who who do you have winning it the rest of the way this year?
who's in it right now.
So we've got UConn, Miami, San Diego State, and FAU. Who are you gonna root for the rest of the way?
I'd probably go UConn.
Fair enough. That's who we're both rooting for.
We all just talked about that.
Yeah.
We're all picking you.
But yeah. And so I was checking out your profile and it said that you had a 3.97 GPA in high school. That's pretty impressive stuff. Cut this out if this is bad for Jackie Lis's parents, but are you keeping that up here at SIU? Like
Yeah,
how
so
important a school do you like?
I mean, softball's only temporary. School is gonna get me a job in the future, so like I like to focus on it still. So I mean, I got a 4.0 last semester.
Whoa.
Spring semester was
Just slight work, you know.
Yeah.
well, it was all intro level classes basically.
Mhm.
But I mean, spring semester might not be as good.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna slack around in class. I try to keep it as good as I can.
Good. And what's your major?
Accounting.
Gotcha.
Lots of numbers in that head.
Yeah.
I've never been good at math myself. Could never do that.
But yeah, we talked a little bit about, you're a freshman coming in here. You're originally from Indiana, and that's
Yes.
not really close to Carbondale necessarily. It's not too far away, I guess. But why here? Why Carbondale? What did you just see touring SIU, the team, and everything? What did you see here?
Well, my recruiting kind of got messed up from COVID, so we didn't really get to hadn't got to go on a visit here or anything when I committed. I just went purely off of I loved the coaching staff. My aunt played for Blaylock and she loved it here. She played here in I think '97, if I remember correctly. And I mean, it was just either there, Murray State. So I mean, pretty obvious choice.
Boo racers.
Good
Yeah.
Saluki blood right there.
Yeah, you talk about your recruiting process and how your aunt played for Blaylock, and I'm sure she was talking up SIU's, their program, but it's not Blaylock anymore. It's Coach Sewell. And how have you liked Coach Sewell so far? Do you think she's obviously you guys are 25-3? You guys gotta be a little bit of a good coach. But
I mean, she does pretty good. I mean, her and Blaylock did a good job running the program together. And anytime Carrie would call me, she'd say that Jen was basically the head coach anyways. It was just under Carrie's name.
Yeah, I
It's
got
I mean, nothing's really changed. Even the upperclassmen will say that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Jen's gonna go to war for us. At Belmont, their field was not good, and they weren't getting it right, and Sewell wasn't letting us on the field until they got it right.
Mm.
It's I mean, she's gonna defend us until she's tossed.
Good.
So.
So, I mean, we kind of wanted you on here because you've been doing so well lately, of course. But we could talk about how well you're doing statistically all day, I feel like, but we're not going to bore you with numbers, of course. But anyways, as a freshman, you've just been doing so well. And the transition into just college from high school is just, everyone knows that's going to be so hard. Facing pitching is different. Can you just talk to us about facing college pitchers? What is that like now compared to high school pitching?
Oh, high school pitching in Indiana it's something. It's not anything near this. But I still had summer ball in between high school and here, and I played for a really good travel team. So I got to see pitchers from Ole Miss, Kentucky. I got to see pretty good mix before I got here, which is probably what helped me the most.
Yeah. Right. And I saw that you played for was it Louisville Lady Sluggers,
Yes.
right? What's that like? Because personally, I played for an AAU team, which is a basketball circuit, but I just did it in my hometown.
Yeah.
You're from Indiana, but you played for a team in Louisville. Was there a lot of traveling involved for you?
Yeah,
Constantly?
so I mean, we were out of Louisville, but half the team wasn't even from anywhere near. So like our number one pitcher was from Kansas. We had girls from Florida, North and South Carolina.
Yeah.
So I mean, and we played in Oklahoma, Kansas, California, Indy, and I forgot what the other one was. But that's where we were all summer.
That had to have been a really cool opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, could you break us down a little bit what that was like? Like, just did you gain a lot of connections with those girls on those
Yeah,
teams?
like I mean, if you look at my Instagram, almost every day I'm reposting something that they did because they're all killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like our number one pitcher went to Stanford. She's
okay.
like the best pitcher in the nation right now. She's killing it. And I mean, I still Snapchat all of them, and I mean, I talk to them all the time. And it's just cool to see all of my friends succeeding at big schools like Stanford, Louisville, all that.
Gotcha. And so we talked about how you've been playing obviously very, very, very well. And was there any tips that the coaching staff gave to you when you got here? And you could be honest, if you just always been like that, you knew you were like, I'm coming here, I'm hitting lots of home runs, it's no biggie or anything. Or was there anything that maybe Sewell just tweaked your game just a little bit?
She tweaked my swing a little bit, like coming from, like in high school I did have like a injury to my leg that I didn't get to play a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still kind of getting my swing back to where it was before I did that.
Yeah.
So I mean, she helped me get there, and then coming in, I was told I was going to be a second baseman, and the only time I played shortstop was in high school, which you don't really need to be much to be a high school shortstop.
Yeah.
And so Mary Jo Fernbach, our newest associate head coach, she basically got me back into shortstop shape, and she got me to where I wasn't messing up a bunch, and I knew where to be on what plays.
Gotcha.
Obviously, some of those tips help you out,
Yeah.
you know, at this point. But with some of that success that you've had comes a little bit more pressure. Are you starting to feel that, at least lately?
No, I mean, it's the same game it was when I was in high school and when I was playing travel, and sometimes you just have to remind yourself that, and that it's still just a game. And that's what I try to do, because once you feel the pressure, it just becomes too much.
Right. And something specifically I noticed, you got moved to you started off the season in the 2 spot in the lineup. Now you're the cleanup. And I feel like the cleanup is generally one that they rely on most for RBIs. They can trust them the most.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel a little bit more pressure, at least in terms of coach, just being moved to that 4 spot?
Not really, because the reason she moved me down is because the people in front of me are, like, I mean, Emma Austin, who's batting 500, so she's going to be getting on. Aubrey DePron, who's right under her, so I mean, between those two, somebody's going to be on. And then Liz Warwick in front of me, if she doesn't knock them in, because she's probably one of the best hitters in the Valley, if not the best hitter, then it falls to me. So, like, I mean, I don't feel any pressure, because even if I don't get it done, Riley Hamilton's right behind me. So, like, I mean, it's nice to know that I've got insurance in front of me and behind me, because that just takes a bunch of weight off my shoulders.
Seems like there's a lot of trust with
There
the
is,
girls this year.
yes.
Do you like being in that 4 spot now? I know you started off in the 2 spot, but do you kind of enjoy that spot?
Yeah, I like kind of having a little bit of time to, like, watch the pitcher, especially, like, the first time going up there and getting to see, like, how, because even though I'm the first righty, still getting to see, like, how she goes up against our lefties because they're hard to get out. So just seeing how she pitches to them kind of helps me figure out what I'm looking for when I go up there.
Do you feel any like different type of approach from some of these pitchers that are starting to notice some of these changes with you, at least this year, as more and more film is being on you in D1 softball and everything like that? So you just feel a bit. I'm not asking this right. Do you feel any difference in the approach that pitchers are taking towards you, at least in your at-bats this year?
Yeah, I feel like at the beginning I was just kind of like the freshman that they didn't know anything about so they were trying to figure me out. So like I was getting both sides of the plate, but as the season goes on, I'm getting like more outside, more off speed, and they're trying to get me to like chase so they get myself out. So they're trying to like pitch around me and around the zone, but I'm still making it work. Just gotta adjust.
You're the home run hitter for this team right now. You got 12 home runs. You're a freaking slugger out there. Are you changing your approach right now at least a little bit in terms of, hey, I can kind of do this, or did you kind of already, like Cole mentioned earlier, you always knew you could kind of do this, at least in terms of slugging home runs like that?
I mean, I've never really hit this many home runs in a season. So, like, I mean, it's just, I just try to think as, like, the pitcher, like, what would I throw to me right now? And then I wait for them to give me that pitch, and I just try to do the best I can with it.
And so, do you feel that, you're getting a whole lot of support from the fans? Obviously, you guys are playing super, super well. Maybe has it increased at all since you started the season, in which, maybe there wasn't a whole lot of fans the first couple of games, but now there's an increasing amount? Or do you feel like...
I mean, we haven't really had too many home games, but I mean, even for, like, our travel games, we still have, like, a lot of fans that show up, like, a lot of parents, family, and everyone. And, I mean, you can hear them, like, when you're up to bat, and they are very supportive. And, I mean, my family's at every game supporting still.
Good.
So, there is still a bunch of support.
Good.
Yeah.
And conference season just started. And I know we just kind of discussed in the podcast earlier, conference is just a whole new season and everything like that. Can you just put into words, at least so far, I know you played only 3 games here, but what is the differences between playing some of these games, at least with these conference opponents? Does the pressure amp up in those games at all, have you noticed? Or does it seem like there's not really any change at all? What's the differences between playing in conference and then just playing those starting games of the season?
I feel like playing in conference, we kind of, like, the upperclassmen know the other team a little bit better, so there's kind of more of, like, tension between the teams. I feel like, so, like, I mean, the game feels a little bit more intense, and especially, like, once you start playing them, like, 2 or 3, like, the second and third game, like, then the freshmen kind of start to figure them out, and, like, it just gets to be, like, you just sit there and pick on the other team, it feels like, which is, I mean, it can be fun, but once they start chirping back, it's just kind of like, okay, what?
Are you a big chirper?
I used to not be, but this year I kind of turned into one.
Nice. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, we have a fun time in the dugout doing it.
You better be when we play SEMO.
Oh, I got you. I'll do it.
Yeah. I wasn't aware that baseball was such a trash talk sport.
The softball
I
specific.
Yeah. Well, apparently Jackie Lis is just letting them loose on the field. Okay, and then our final question for you today is, we kind of just want to ask you, what do you think is the stratosphere for this team? Like, in other words, do you guys have a ceiling, and where do you guys end up seeing yourselves this year? What's your guys' team goal for the end of the season?
I mean, obviously our goal is to win conference and go as far as we can to into regionals and maybe make it to the College World Series.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this team can do it. Like, our pitchers are the best in the MVC.
Yep.
Like, and we have the best batting average in the MVC. We have, like, the top, like, in the top 10 MVC batting averages, we have at least 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I mean, I feel like we're in a good position to win it all. And I feel like we can do it. We just have to keep going.
Yeah. Do you have any individual goals for yourself that you want to hit before the end of the year? Aside from the record, of course. We know you want that record.
I mean, yeah, that record would be nice, but I think my total goal is just, my aunt has a record here.
Mm-hmm.
I think she has the highest career batting average.
Mm-hmm.
And I always told her, even when I was like 10, that I was going to come here and break it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the goal,
Well,
the
there you go.
long-term goal right there.
We appreciate that very much. We appreciate you doing this interview with us, Jackie.
Thank you for having us.
Please be sure to go to Charlotte West Stadium and check out our women's softball team. I don't know why I said women's there. Let's redo that real quick because obviously it's women's. But anyways, thank you so much, Jackie, for doing this with us. And please be sure to go to Charlotte West Stadium and check out the softball girls.
Yes, do it.
Alrighty, folks. Now it's time to catch you up with just a little bit of NBA first. Don't worry, we're gonna break into March Madness. Don't you worry. But I just want to break in with a little bit of NBA because it's starting to heat up right now. Still currently sitting at 80%. Just wanted to put you guys on blast for some really great games this weekend. Knicks at Cavs. They're going to be fighting for those 3 seeds. 3 between 6 seeds. Wins are becoming really, really, really important. That's going to be played on Friday. I think Donovan Mitchell is going to want to go off on the team that almost traded for him, but didn't inevitably happen. I'm going to go ahead and take the Cavs in this one just because they're at home. I think they're a really, really solid team, and although the Knicks are a much better team than they were, I'd probably say 2 years ago, I think that the Cavs will really be able to put one together. Another one that's really important towards the play-in race. Lakers at Timberwolves. This one's also on Friday. You know me, I normally don't like talking about the Lakers, but LeBron is back. He's kind of rushing back from an injury, which we almost never see him do.
Yeah.
That's because he wants his team in the play-in race, and they do have at least a chance of making a little bit of noise in the playoffs if they get a right matchup, right, if they play against the Kings. Go ahead,
Can I
Jay
say one
Cruz.
thing?
Yeah,
I am a
Jay Cruz.
LeBron hater, and I think it is important to note that
Yeah.
when he got injured, they weren't in the play-in.
Yep.
Since he's left now, they are in the play-in pretty
True.
comfortably, actually. So just want to say that maybe he's making them worse. They did just lose to our Chicago Bulls yesterday. So.
He must be making them
I
worse.
really want a graphic right when the camera pans to Jordan next, when he just talked of LeBron hater.
Yes.
Underneath him.
Yes.
I say LeBron truther is
Ah.
what I am. I'm not a hater. I'm a truther.
Yes. Yes, he does. Yeah, he's been a little.
Their
There's been
record.
signs this year.
I did some research after this Bulls game because I was surprised that the Bulls handled them the way that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And they have basically the same record with and without him. So does he really make that much of a difference? I don't know. Some are asking.
Some are asking. Some are asking. Some are also asking. Throw the chalk up while coming off the bench. Is that the corniest move in NBA history?
Some might
say
be the
that is
corniest
insane.
player in NBA history.
We
We
I think
can
it's
do
a
a whole
lot.
other podcast
I
on
think it's
how
a-
corny LeBron
Who's
is.
cornier,
Absolutely.
Russell Wilson or LeBron?
It's a tough
Oh,
race. It's a
boy.
very tough race.
That's
Quality, Russell
really-
Wilson. Quantity,
LeBron, there's one every week.
Those old Instagram posts of LeBron.
Taco Tuesday.
They go pretty well.
Taco Tuesday. When he just fell to his knees in the Celtics game. Oh my God! Don't even get me started. Okay.
Never gotten a call in my life.
Yeah, exactly right.
Flip-flop.
And then finally, wrap it up with a really great game on Sunday. Please, fingers crossed, Joel Embiid can play for this one because what the heck? We have a Sixers-Nuggets matchup coming soon enough.
Yeah.
And apparently Joel Embiid's out with a hamstring.
Yeah.
I mean, Joel Embiid's been talking a lot of smack as of recently, and the Sixers doctors want to save him. Frustrates me, but I think that Giannis Antetokounmpo is still very much in the MVP race, and I think that that'll be a really, really fun game to catch on Sunday. But let's also just break a little bit into takeaways that I want to put our audience on notice for. Number one, you may have been hearing some smoke about J-Dub, Jalen Williams, shooting guard for the Thunder. I say that only because there's another player in the Thunder named Jalen Williams, but he just goes by Jalen. This one goes by J-Dub. And Jalen Williams has been getting a lot of traction lately for his great play that maybe he's making a run at Paolo Banchero for Rookie of the Year. And folks, I'm telling you, that is absolute bullcrap. Yeah, that's right, I said bullcrap. Because Paolo has been tearing it up all year. And then all of a sudden, we get this noise because Jalen Williams has a great last month of basketball that he's going to be the new Rookie of the Year. I love Jalen Williams. I loved when the Thunder picked him. Yes, I'm a Duke fan. There's possibly a little bit of bias in here, but that does not change the fact that I'm right. I'm right more often than I'm wrong. This thing is a lock on. Woo. Number two, Embiid is mad at the world right now. He seems like I've seen at least 6 quotes about Embiid complaining, well, why am I talked about with all these guys? I don't have an MVP. I don't have all this stuff. So it is very fun that Joel Embiid's talking himself into this idea of himself before the playoffs come, that really, if you're a Sixers fan, you should be happy about that. However, Joel, if your team falls short again,
It's on you.
you just wait for all the smoke that comes your way, buddy. Because once you start talking that talk, you better hit. Just think of the Grizzlies last year.
Yeah.
When they talked so much, they lost in the playoffs. I mean, people were on the Grizzlies side up until they played the Warriors and started becoming more confident. Now, are Grizzlies like one of the most hated teams in the league? Kind of. So Joel Embiid needs to tread on. He's on thin ice right now.
Yeah,
you should tread carefully. And then finally, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but the Western Conference playoff race, or play-in race, I should say, everybody should tune into. 5 through 12, they're separated by, I think it's 2.5 games.
Crazy.
This is going to be insane. You're going to see. If there's a time to start watching NBA,
No.
first of all, wait till the Final Four ends. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But if you're going to tune into like a regular season night on Tuesday on ESPN, tune in now, especially if they're Western Conference teams. It's going to have like championship level intensity in some of these. Definitely be sure to tune in. That's all for NBA. Now we got to talk to Jay Cruz about this crazy, some would say insane March Madness bracket. Now, I know I just had a major quote, I'm right more than I am wrong. However, I am last place in our little tournament pool. because mine just went completely off the walls
My
right
mind
here.
went straight to that when you said that.
Yes.
Like, well,
And J. Cruz is winning as of right now. So
I
J.
am.
Cruz, tell us your secret
First
and
thing
how you
is-
knew that. Who do you have winning? Houston? Where are they at? Oh,
Yeah, there.
no bigger
Well, so did
anything.
you, but
yeah.
anyway, no, I take no pride in being first. I've never in my life. I was just telling you guys before we started recording. I've never picked the champion right in a bracket, like my real like thought out prediction bracket before. I still never have, but I've never won either. But if this is the year I somehow win all my bracket groups, I'm really not going to feel that good about it.
Yes.
But yeah, this NCAA tournament has been absolutely crazy, and which every single one is. But I think this is the first time where we can say, okay, no, this one was actual insanity from the very beginning. I think the biggest takeaway, if you're looking at the NCAA tournament from a macro standpoint, this was the weakest crop of 1 seeds we've ever had.
Oh, I agree.
And I think we all knew that coming in, which is why when each of these teams lost, it wasn't all that crazy. Starting from top left and going down. Alabama, I mean, with not even just from their situation, but even before that, they were seen as a team that, like, if they go cold one night, it's bad.
Yes.
Because of their fast-paced kind of screw-it kind of style of play, especially on offense. Brandon Miller, like,
rough.
what was that?
I don't know.
Scoreless in which game did he go scoreless? Was it this last one against San Diego State?
I think he got like 3 in that one, but he went scoreless in the second.
Maybe the first.
It might have been the first round
game.
matchup.
First game against Texas A&M CC.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what happened to him.
Well, and what was interesting about it is that he was getting so much praise. Well, and honestly, I don't even know if this is deserving praise, but he was
Right.
caught up in all these trials and accusations, and he went off and had 41 points.
He's
the
playing
next night.
incredible.
He played incredible all throughout the tournament too,
Yeah.
until he reached the big time tournament where he shot. What was it? Sim ESPN had some graphic lowest field goal percentage by a freshman ever. Who
Yeah, it was
played
crazy.
significant
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
So that's absolutely insane. But yeah.
And then the next 1 seed, Houston. Marcus Sasser was hurt at the beginning of the tournament, but he got healthier. They crush Auburn. And as a guy who picked them to win, I'm like, okay, we're good. We're good. We're playing Miami next. We'll definitely talk about a lot more about later. And Miami just runs them out of the gym. Houston was a team that, like, if you look at them on paper, even though they were in a weaker conference, which I think ended up hurting them in the end, but having said that, they had played some good teams at the beginning of the year, had beaten them, and I thought they were an unstoppable force, and they kind of just got run out of the gym when it was kind of tailor-made for them to make the Final Four, having it in Houston. Their road to the Final Four wouldn't have been all that hard because they had to play a lot of teams with a ton of flaws, but that was that sucked for them, obviously. Then Kansas, another team that they didn't really have a ton of injuries, but Bill Self, their head coach, was out.
Yep.
Didn't coach any of the last few games. That obviously hurts your team, and they happened to get the worst draw against the 8 or 9 seed when they ran into Arkansas. He's got 4 or 5 NBA players on their team.
Yep.
Or even if they would have played Illinois, I mean, they were a really talented team as well. But you did call Arkansas going semi-ish. I mean, you had them beating Kansas when most people didn't.
Yep.
So
Do
if
that one,
there's anything
folks.
to praise you for, that would be it.
No biggie or anything.
And then the final 1 seed, the worst of them all, the team that everyone in America the entire year knew that something like this was going to happen. I don't think anyone really thought it would happen in the first round.
Yeah.
But
Not
for
this.
Purdue to lose to Fairleigh Dickinson, again, it wasn't like all that shocking, but nobody thought it was actually going to happen. Like maybe they'd make it close, but they ran him out of the gym, and it was just because other than Zach Edey, who himself has a lot of limitations, he's just not really that athletic.
Yeah, not part.
But their guards and basically everyone else on that team they're just not good players.
Yep.
Like it sucks to say, but this was Purdue might be the worst 1 seed ever. Like even worse than that Virginia team that lost, because that Virginia team they still had NBA players on that team.
And they went to the championship next year.
And they won it next year, right? Matt Painter, former SIU head coach, so we can't bash him too much, but he just can't get it done. And I think it's less about him as a coach and more about him as a recruiter.
Yeah.
But even so, they had Jaden Ivey last year, and Travion Williams, and Edey was there. They had a great roster last year that lost to St. Peter, so maybe it is him. Maybe it's a combination of the both. I don't know, but it was stupid. Now, let's advance off the 1 seeds. Talk about the Final Four. Let's just get into it, right?
Yeah.
Because I have a bone to pick with the general public, and you mentioned earlier how you think this Final Four sucks, right?
Sucks is a strong word.
It's not.
I'll
It doesn't
tell you
have
what.
the juice.
I hate the westernmost side of the bracket, the one on the left. I don't like that at all.
Which one?
I would have preferred Creighton as opposed to San Diego State. San Diego State is a bore fill. They play or when Virginia and Texas Tech played in the national championship. Sorry, I'm just falling asleep thinking about that defensive battle.
Yeah.
It's not very fun. Creighton plays a very fun style of ball. I think they have one of the best starting fives in the country. The only problem is they lack depth, and that was kind of what hurt them. I don't know, just San Diego State in the Final Four, gross. Like FAU, I really like the Owls. I like that. It was that sophomore guard they got. His last name Davis. He's the one who's been
John
putting
L.
up.
Davis.
He's insane. I mean, that guy. I mean, I doubt he gets drafted. I mean, that'd be pretty lofty. But that guy's got to get. If he enters the transfer portal, what Kentucky's calling him for sure. So yeah, I like this side, the right side, much better.
Yeah.
UConn versus Miami. As a ACC avid watcher, I knew Miami had the chance to go this far, but San Diego State, boo, no one likes them. FAU making it that far, that one just hurts me personally because if Duke just gets through Tennessee, it's right there. It's just like just beat FAU.
So are you crying?
I'm crying a little bit internally because the road would have been so easy, and I know Duke could have beaten San Diego State, but it's fine. Proctor's coming back next year. It's fine. It's fine.
Nothing better than I love seeing Duke fans cry.
Whatever. Whatever, dude. Don't listen to him. Keep going, Jake.
The thing that I don't understand is the people who are like, these are like the people who won the 12-team playoff in college football. Like, we want to see the Cinderella runs, but then when you get the Cinderella runs, these people are like, I hate that there's no like big name brand. I mean, UConn. UConn is a big name brand, I guess, but they're like the New York Giants of college basketball, where if they don't win a title that year, that team probably sucked. And then they have a random year where they win the title. Like, they won all those in the late 90s. They won the two with Jim Calhoun as their coach with Kemba, and then Kevin Ollie when Shabazz Napier was there.
Mm-hmm.
And now they have, by the way, all these championships that they've had are now with 3 different coaches, or at least reaching the Final Four. It's with 3 different coaches. Crazy how UConn has kind of gone under the radar as a top program in college basketball history. But the point is that people say they want Cinderellas, but when they get them, they don't really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with all that being said, 4 months ago, if I were to tell you that UConn, Miami, and San Diego State were to be in the Final Four, these were teams that people thought were going to be really good at the beginning of the season. You remember UConn was like 15-0. They were ranked number 1 for a while. They're finally coming back into that form where they're just murdering teams.
So that's the thing with me is I feel like you almost never see that. You almost never see a team start the season kicking ass and then suck for a couple of weeks and then go back to kicking butt.
And then San Diego State, they were a top 20, top 15 team at the beginning of the year. A team like Miami coming off that great run last year, nobody would have been surprised to see them back here. But just because of the way that the season went, now it kind of feels like, oh, well, like these 4 and 5 seeds who, we're supposed to be there. And of course, you have the one Cinderella with FAU, but keep in mind, they have 35 wins. They have the most wins of any team in the country. So I know that the brand of college basketball isn't great, but these are great teams. UConn is the number 1 in Ken Pomeroy's offensive defensive efficiencies thing.
Mm-hmm.
Miami is a top 5 offense. San Diego State is top 5 in defense. And FAU, like I just said, has the most wins in college basketball. So it's going to be 2 great games. It's just maybe not the brands that people want, but I don't care.
Was it even like a thought in your guys' minds that the number 1 seed in all 4 corners of the bracket wouldn't even make it to the Elite 8? Like, was that even a possibility? It was a thought. Did I think it was going to happen? No. But it was definitely a thought that I had when I was filling mine out.
We knew this would be a weird year. Just because of the, like you talked about, these are pretty weak 1 seeds. I mean, there was always an avenue for somebody to fall off. Now, granted, it's never happened before, so I didn't pick it, but what can you do?
The other crazy thing about this Final Four is 3 of the 4, FAU, Miami, and San Diego State all probably should have been out in round 1. FAU got that lucky break against Memphis, round 1. Drake, shout out MVC, was beating Miami by 8 with like 4 minutes left to go and then just fell apart at the end. And San Diego State and Charleston were in a battle to the very, very end where San Diego State just out-physicaled them. And of course, like I said, UConn's been crushing teams on the way here, but...
Wait, actually, hold on now, because that's interesting you brought that up. I hadn't considered this yet. I had every single one of these teams losing in the first round, which might be why I'm last place in our bracket. But I had Iona upsetting UConn, which Iona was leading at halftime.
They were leading at halftime.
They're the only team that has even put up somewhat of a fight against this incredible UConn team so far. I had Drake beating Miami. I had Charleston beating San Diego State, and I had Memphis beating FAU. That's nuts. You're getting the best stuff here, folks.
Some of us had all 4 of those, right? I also had UConn in the Final Four. That's probably the main reason I'm here, because I had UConn in the Final Four.
That's the only.
Can you get more points, Jordan?
No, I'm done.
You're done?
I only had them in the Final Four. I had Houston beating them. Which I don't regret any of my predictions I made. It's just March Madness is crazy. You're never gonna get it all right.
Mm-hmm.
If you were, we wouldn't be here right now. So yeah, I think UConn. Honestly, getting into the prediction side of this, the Miami story is incredible, and they, on paper, probably should have lost to every single team that they've played up to this point. They just find a way though, and they do it in different ways too. Against Houston, it was a 3-point barrage. Nigel Pack couldn't miss. He went 7 of 10, and then against Texas, they scored 88 points, and you might think, oh, they were just chucking threes again. No, they get 2 threes in the entire game. They just find different ways to do it. That's obviously a credit to their experience from last year and a credit to their coach, Jim Larrañaga, who led George Mason to the Final Four back in 2006 or something. And you know what team they lost to in the Final Four?
This was what, 2006?
I don't know if it was 2006, but somewhere in that range.
No, I don't know.
UConn.
Oh.
And they're playing UConn. Once
There
again,
you go.
Jim Larrañaga versus UConn. It's going to be a great 2 games, like I said, just maybe not the brands that people want, but I'm excited. And I think ultimately UConn, I just can't come up with a reason why they would lose, other than Miami just has this magic, and San Diego State, if they
Do we think
FAU.
anybody on the left side has a chance at winning?
Yeah,
Like,
I do.
legit, like, winning.
San Diego State, they did what they wanted with Alabama, especially defensively. They made Alabama look like they never played basketball before.
True.
They're such a good defensive team. Again, I know they're not fun to watch. Sorry to the casuals out there, like Cole Daly.
No.
But they're a really,
Just like
really,
good
really,
basketball.
they're a really, really good basketball team. They look like a bunch of football players too. They're
Yeah, I know.
they're just dudes.
Well, they all
at
move
San Diego
weird
State.
too. I'm legitimately, one of their centers is 45 years old. You cannot tell me
Is it?
opposite.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
he looks 45.
I
yeah.
can't pronounce his last name, but
Yeah.
there's no way he is not 45 years old. They said he's from Nebraska. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
what? I don't understand. So, all right, now Joey, tell us a little bit about. We've got our first introduction into the MLB universe. So Joey's gonna take the lead from here.
This is what I've been waiting for.
Yes, sir.
I love baseball. Some may say it's the most beautiful game ever created.
I agree.
I agree too. I'm gonna write a story about it for the DE, so watch out for that in a couple weeks. But anyways, I just wanted to go over who I think is probably gonna win the divisions this year in each of the divisions in each league of the MLB. I'm gonna start off with the NL Central because that's the most beautiful division because the Chicago Cubs are in there. But they're sadly not gonna win the division because our star catcher Wilson Contreras is gonna lead the Cardinals and Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, the MVP. They're gonna, of course, lead their way to another division win, and they play in a very bad division. Of course, the Cubs aren't the greatest. They'll be back up. Me and Jordan think they might make it to the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
They're obviously a whole lot better. They got Dansby Swanson, Eric Hosmer, Cody Bellinger, who I know. Jordan is a big fan of that signing, of course, but somebody who I think is somehow under the radar is Jordan Hicks for the Cardinals. Oh my goodness, shout out to my friend Caleb Toberman for letting me know of his greatness, but he can hit 104 miles an hour, which is just insane, and he got injured for most of the year last year, so he'll be one of their star relief pitchers this year, assuming he stays healthy. I'm not sure if he's going to start in AAA this year or not, but I hope to actually see him more. I'm sad that he's a Cardinal because I wish he was on the Cubs because of how fast he can pitch, but I think it's a fair say to think the Cardinals are probably going to win the division. Jordan, you think so too?
Yeah, I'd agree. And this is probably one of the deeper Cardinals games I've seen in a long time. They've got some amazing prospects too. Jordan Walker, who made the opening day roster, Mason Wynn too, who's got a cannon for an arm at shortstop. The only thing this sounds really, really stupid, and I'm probably grasping for straws at this point. The only thing that could keep the Cardinals down is maybe the fact that they have too much talent. And how are you gonna, allocate those amazing resources every single day? Because you've got so many guys who can play, in so many different matchups. But other than that, yeah, they're the deepest team in the division. The team that people are somehow still picking to win the division, I don't really understand, is the Brewers. They're the most fraudulent team of all time. They're propped up by their 3 starting pitchers who
Exactly.
last year they weren't as like elite top 3 in the league as they had been, and look, they didn't even make the playoffs,
Right.
and they were still amazing, but they weren't like throwing 7 innings, no runs every single game like they were the year before. So yeah, the Brewers are probably the most overrated team in the league in my opinion. And I think the Cubs legitimately do have a chance. Maybe we might get into more of it here soon, but the Cubs legitimately have a chance to finish second, possibly sneak into a playoff spot. But I do think the Cardinals are probably going to win the division.
I say so too. I love the patience that we've seen out of some of these Cubs hitters. Cole seemed like one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with
You agree?
Okay, right.
And can I say this? Goldschmidt, he did not look. This is Paul Goldschmidt, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I caught a little bit of the film during the World Cup.
Mm.
Didn't look like all that. Why is he the MVP? What happened?
It was. I mean,
He looks old. How old
There's
is
something about Cardinal
like
players.
32 or 33, I think.
he? He looks like he's 48.
Well, Cardinals players always choke
Exactly.
in the championships when it matters the
They
most.
didn't
Yeah.
even win a playoff game last year.
Yeah.
I went to one of them. And
Yeah,
he
you did.
He just didn't. He didn't do shit.
Didn't do
so
anything. Yeah.
I mean, if I was a Cardinals fan, I'd probably be so annoyed. But that was the most beautiful game I've ever seen in my life because I'm a Cubs fan.
Yeah,
Guys,
absolutely.
Anyways, we'll move on to the NL East. I think fair shot is the Braves. I mean, Ronald Acuna, he's coming back. Oh my goodness, I could see him winning MVP this year. Just coming
could
back
too.
off it.
Oh my
What was
goodness,
his injury last year? Was it ACL?
I think it was ACL.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows how he'll come back after that, but I mean, I could totally see him winning MVP this year. They might have the best overall team in baseball in terms of pitching staff and their starting lineup. I just think their future, like the championship window for that team is still wide open, and they've had that open for a couple of years now. So I feel like with everybody on long-term deals, especially Acuna as well, I feel like it's a fair shot that they would win the division. I know the Mets are pretty. They'll give them a run for their money. What do you?
You just it sounded like you referenced that. Let's go Mets, baby. Love the Mets. Sorry,
It's all about the Mets, baby. Love the Mets.
Mets. Let's go
I do love
Mets.
that meme, but yeah,
Sorry,
the
folks.
Mets. The Mets might give them a run for their money in terms of their pitching staff because they just got Verlander, and then obviously DeGrom and Scherzer
Yep.
is on there too. So I mean, their starting rotation might be the best in all of baseball. Is that?
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah,
I'd
it's
say
close.
so.
It's close with
At
the
least
Houston
they have-
Astros, but
Yeah, at least they have the most stars, I'd say.
Yeah.
But, I
they're
mean,
old too. They're old. They're not. They're only getting worse.
Exactly.
It's not really like because they're bad pitchers. They're just getting older. That's just what happens.
Right. And so it'll be another close race between the Braves and the Mets, but I feel like the Braves are going to take it this year because they took it by one game last year, I believe.
Yes.
So
I think they tied it with the Mets, but had the tiebreaker.
and I just don't trust the Mets late in the year.
I don't even.
I mean, last year was a perfect example of that. I don't think anybody can trust the Mets late in the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like the Braves are probably going to take the East. The West, I feel like the Padres, this is the year where it comes all together for
Oh
them.
my goodness.
With a full offseason for Juan Soto, and then Tatis, he's going to come back after his suspension on April 20th, I believe, because I was kind of reading it lately. Every game that that the Padres played in the playoffs last year, they also took a game off of his suspension, so now it's like the 20th,
Yeah.
because they got pretty far into the postseason last year, so, but yeah, we'll see how he is off of a huge amount of rest with that suspension. Juan Soto's full off season, and then Xander Bogaerts, he's the big shortstop, for the Padres now, and their pitching staff is, still pretty okay. Darvish, Joe Musgrove, I feel like they can take it in a fairly hard division to play in with
Yeah.
like the Rockies. I mean, the Rockies aren't a good team, I guess, but like the Dodgers. And
Yeah.
Who am I missing? Who else is in the West?
Giants.
The Giants. But besides,
Diamondbacks.
I feel like the Dodgers are going to regress this year.
I do too. Yeah.
Totally.
Definitely. I
They're-
think that they haven't been like a bad team maybe ever in their history. Like they're always just there because they have the most money, they have the most good
yeah.
players on their team. Their farm system's always pretty good. But I think this is the year where you're going to see us a little bit of a regression. I mean, when you win 111 games, obviously you're probably due for some regression. But I legitimately think the Dodgers they're a wild card team, and I think the Padres are probably the best team in the division. The issue with the Padres though that might hurt them in the postseason is defensively they're not fantastic. Machado's great at third, but when they sign Bogarts and they still have Tatis and they still have Juan Soto, who himself is not a great defender, now you've got so many guys at the same position to where you're going to have to start moving like Tatis to the outfield potentially. I've seen him play some right field in spring training. It's kind of weird. Their owner has just kind of been like, I don't really care what position he plays. We're going to throw money at him and get a guy like Bogarts. So they'll be a really, really fun team to watch. For some reason they have a lot of people that hate them. I don't hate the Padres. I think they're really fun to watch. I love Fernando Tatis. People probably hate him just because of steroids.
I've always liked Tatis.
Yeah.
I know some baseball, folks. I know some
Yeah,
baseball.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanna
He's
put it out there.
breaking the unwritten rules of baseball.
Yeah.
With what
Yeah.
was it a couple years ago, that controversy?
That he swung 3-0
Yeah,
like
he
when
swung
they were
3-0
up late in
and,
the
like,
game and he hit a
it was-
grand slam.
yeah, it was,
because all
bases
these
loaded.
people got their feelings hurt. Yeah. This is one of those things, like baseball is the reason baseball sucks for most people is there's so many baseball purists, so many like unwritten rules and nuances that people just don't let go of. There's some of that in basketball and football too, but baseball in particular is really, really bad about that. But yeah, I think Padres are winning the division. I think Dodgers are due for a little bit of regression, but they're still definitely going to be a playoff team. They're still definitely a great team that can win the World Series.
And somebody else we didn't even mention is Cronenworth. He's all
Jake
reliable over
Cronenworth,
there at
yeah.
third base. I mean,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, I love his bat and his fielding too. It's
Yeah.
great. Onto the AL. I think in the Central, it'll be pretty interesting there. But my pick is the White Sox, and I really think I know it's probably my least confident pick on here, but I think La Russa really pulled them back last year,
I
and
agree.
they had a lot of injuries too. So I really think just with time for those injuries to rest, injured players to rest and everything, and I feel like I don't even know who their new manager is, but just anybody
I don't
besides Tony La Russa.
Yeah, I don't either. I can't remember.
I can't remember either off the top of my head, but yeah, they don't play in the greatest division either.
No.
So I feel like with all the stars that they have, there's no reason why they can't get some of those easy wins off of like the Indians or like I guess the Indians.
It's not a team anymore.
You racist.
No,
The
you keep
Guardians,
saying it. He just
yeah.
said that's not their name anymore.
Yeah, I know. The Guardians. My bad. Off the Guardians.
It's okay. I do
And
it all the time.
the Astros are in the West.
Royals, Tigers.
Royals,
The other two
Tigers.
teams. Who stink?
Yeah.
Who stink? I think the
That's why I
the
forget.
Royals could get close to 500, I think, but Tigers. I mean, they're starting Javi Baez. Love him, but he's gone. He's had the type of downturn that is like.
Yeah.
I kind of don't.
Which
miss
that's another discussion for another day. But
Yeah.
I never liked Javi Baez.
Really?
To be honest,
Interesting.
I was never a fan of him. Just
Well,
swinging, missing it literally like a ball, like
Toward-
in the dirt.
especially
I was a
toward-
Contreras
yeah,
fan myself.
I love
that,
Valley,
that
yeah.
World Series
Towards the
team.
end of
I really liked
towards the end of Baez's Cubs tenure, you were probably more justified on that because he hasn't fixed the problems that have plagued him since he was in the minor leagues. So.
Right.
Javi Baez reminds me of got to do a basketball comparison here, but he reminds me of like a Jordan Poole, where it's like the funds are really fun,
Interesting.
but the mess ups.
Or Westbrook even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that too.
He's more Westbrook now than he's Poole. Poole's at least
Yeah, Poole's at least solid.
he can at least
now,
shoot.
I'd
You can never deny Baez's fielding too, because he like that they call him El
I mean, he
Mambo
makes
for a reason.
This has turned into the Javi Baez podcast, but he can make some incredible plays, but he also I think he leads the league in errors too. Like he tries to do too much sometimes. Anyway, yeah. In the Central, I actually think the Twins are going to win it. The thing with the White Sox is the one guy on their team who I think doesn't get talked about because he's always injured is Luis Robert, who is like
Right.
I think he's Cuban, maybe like the Cuban Mike Trout is what he is. He's got ridiculous power. He's probably faster than Mike Trout, honestly, too. But he's always injured. Like half the White Sox team is injured. I think Moncada got hurt in the World Baseball Classic. Like their team is just they can never stay healthy. But they did finally get an old head in La Russa out, whoever their manager is, and we're terrible people for not doing research on this. I hope that he can get that back together. As a Cubs fan, I have no hatred for the White Sox. But the Twins, though, went all out in the offseason. Their ownership group, clearly, they got Correa back after that whole fiasco. They are all in on winning. They got Pablo Lopez in the trade with the Marlins. I think that they're a really, really good team. They just haven't won a playoff game in forever.
Right.
So they're the team that I would definitely pick in the AL Central.
And I love Brian Buxton too.
Byron
terrific
Buxton's
outfield.
awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna go to the AL East right now. I feel like it's gotta be Yankees.
Real underdog story.
Oh yeah, three. My God, as much as I wish it was literally anybody else besides the Yankees, it's gonna be the Yankees. Aaron Judge, they nailed him, of course.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was no way they weren't gonna get him. I don't know. I just couldn't see him with any other team besides the Yankees.
I agree.
But anyways, they got Aaron Judge back and everything, and their starting rotation is up there with some of the best in baseball. I know we were talking about the Cardinals rotate. Excuse me. I know we were talking about the Padres rotation earlier and the Mets rotation. I feel like their rotation up there with Garrett Cole. What's his name? Carlos Rodon?
Carlos Rodon, yeah.
Who's
already hurt, I think.
Yeah. I think he's going to start the year on the injured list.
Yeah.
And then Severino in that bullpen, they'll be pretty tough to handle, at least for a starting lineup. So I feel like it'll be Yankees. Would you say so too?
I'd agree, and I think they'll probably win it by a big margin this year because the three teams who were in contention for a long time was the Rays, who have been good forever, the Red Sox, and the Blue Jays. They missed their window of being really, really good. Like now they're on the decline, and the other team on the come up is the Orioles, but they're still not like they're going to be good. They might contend for a playoff spot, but they're still not near the Yankees level. Probably won't be for a long time. Maybe never will be. But the other three teams they missed their window. You know they've still got some really good players like the Blue Jays, for example, but their pitching's been so bad. Jose Barrios, who they traded for, thought that he would be their ace for years to come. It's really fallen off. Manoah's really good. Good starting pitcher for them. It was fantastic last season, but like I said, I think those three teams are having to retool now, and it's going to be the Yankees division, unfortunately.
I would love to see the Blue Jays, like how they would perform in like literally any other division, like if they weren't playing against the Yankees. Literally, like how much do they play? 20 games a year against? I think it's changed now.
Now it's like 12 against your division opponents per year. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean having to face the Yankees 12 games a year, it's can be pretty tough.
Yeah, stinks.
The Blue Jays, and I love Vlad Guerrero Jr. But anyways, moving on to the last division, I feel like the only answer is the Astros again. They're the defending champs. They regressed in certain ways, though. We mentioned Verlander earlier, and Altuve isn't going to start the year. He's going to be on the injured list, so that'll be interesting to see how he comes back from that. And then I don't know who their ace is going to be without Verlander, like I mentioned, but the lineup is pretty stout, like I mentioned, and they should be able to keep that division in their grasp for most of the year, I feel like.
I totally agree. And they've got two stud pitchers in Luis Garcia and Framber Valdez who were clutch in the postseason. They threw that no-hitter against the Orioles, or not the Orioles, Phillies. I don't know where Orioles came from. The Phillies in the World Series, which they did it in a different way last year than they did when they were cheating in 2017. But at the same time, the wild card in this division is the Rangers, because they've spent so much money. They just got DeGrom, who is going to start opening day, unless he just has to get Tommy John surgery in the next couple of days, which is likely.
DeGrom was
which is like exactly. They have Marcus Semien second base, Corey Seager's their shortstop, Adolis Garcia, who came onto the scene a couple of years ago, has a ton of power. They've got good pieces. It's just they're just not really a good team. You know what I mean? Like you have some teams that are just thrown together through free agency, but they haven't really gelled yet. I hope this is the year. It'd be nice to see another team other than the Astros win it, but them and the Mariners. We forgot to mention the Mariners.
Oh, right.
I actually want to backtrack everything I just said because the Mariners are a team. They played well against the Astros in the playoffs last year. They only lost. I think they lost every game by one run against the Astros. So Julio Rodriguez, one of the more exciting players to watch. He's everything. He reminds me of Acuna in a lot of ways, but maybe even with more power. He's got some, like I said, potential to be one of the better players in the league if he's not already. And that team, Luis Castillo, they traded for him at the deadline last year to shore up that starting pitching rotation. The guy who I guess they're waiting for to pop off is Jared Kelenic, who is their number one prospect for such a long time. He hasn't really materialized into what he could be. If he does, though, they're a team that can really challenge the Astros, especially with the Astros losing a couple starting pitchers and with Altuve being gone. They can give them a run for their money, but ultimately I think the Astros are the team to beat.
I really don't want them to win the division because screw them for 2017.
Yeah.
But, we'll see.
More hated, Yankees or Astros?
Now the Astros probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the Astros now.
Had there not been that scandal, we'd probably say the Yankees, but
right. I mean, it's been like 12 years, as if that's a long time for the Yankees.
Yeah.
Or 13 years.
Right. Yeah.
It was 09 when they won it?
09, yeah.
09.
And they haven't even made it back since then.
Exactly.
But they've been in the ALCS almost every single year. They just lose to the Astros.
Right. The Astros are still good despite the cheating scandal. So
yeah. Very annoying.
They're probably the most underrated dynasty of all time because of the scandal. Like, had this not happened, we'd be talking about, oh my gosh, this is like the best stretch of baseball we've ever seen for a team that prior to that had been like one of the worst franchises of all time. So.
Right.
Very interesting stuff. Still learning, folks.
We'll keep it coming.
Yeah, that'll be it for us. This has been episode 20. And by next episode, our podcast will be able to drink. So we're really looking forward to that. We're really excited about it. If you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe, hit the bell notification. And if you're listening on Spotify, please be sure to give us a follow. And, of course, like this podcast as well. You all have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.